Now, in case you think that the majority of questions that an astrologer gets is boyfriend-related type questions, well, that isn't exactly true. In fact, increasingly, the questions that I'm getting more and more is that people are asking, why can't I leave the job I hate? Now, you would think that it would be easy to leave a job, especially if it's one that you don't even like. I mean, typically, to leave a job, you would probably write a resignation letter, have a chat with your boss, maybe serve a month's notice, whatever the protocol is at your office. And you would think, well, then you're home free, right? But the truth is, this is a topic that strikes fear into the hearts of many working adults worldwide. And because we have been applying astrology to career concerns for a really long time now, we've kind of been able to sort of distill what are some of the 3 common reasons why people just don't leave their jobs. And I think the very first one is that they just don't know where to go. And the second would be, where then do I find that perfect job, even if I knew exactly where to go? And thirdly, if I actually did go and do that one thing that I want to do, who's going to pay me for it? So I can understand that if you hold a job because you make your living from it, then obviously you're not going to leave your job just in a vacuum unless you knew where you were going to. Now, we've often asked people, okay, so if you're going to quit your job, then what would you like in a career? And it's really surprising how a lot of people can't even answer a very simple question like that. And quite often when we ask people, okay, so right, you hate your job, so why? And I think majority of people think it's some kind of an external factor. Like the common ones we've heard of are like, maybe it's not the right career, or I hate my boss, I don't think my boss is the right kind of person, the office is too far, I just don't really like the work scope. So what I found over the years is that the real reason why people are kind of stuck and they can't take an action is because the issues are internal. You see, if you come right down to the core of it, the truth is most people didn't actually choose their jobs. Now, common answers that we've gotten are people who said, well, we just kind of chose from what was available on jobportal.com, or maybe it was my mom who chose it for me. Like my mom or my best friend thought like I would be suitable for this job. Clearly they were wrong. Or it might have been decided by the diploma or the degree that you picked as a teenager like 15 or 20 years ago. And then it kind of decided your fate. So now that you're in your 40s or your 50s, you're kind of still stuck in that position. Now, I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty scary that we even have sometimes students or participants in their 40s and their 50s who have come in to say that, well, I've been in my trade for the last 20, sometimes 30 years, and deep down inside, I never actually know whether I'm suitable for this job or not. And it's scary because then we also have very young participants who think like, oh, maybe I'll figure it out as I get older. But that kind of isn't the truth, right? It's scary too. And let me know if you kind of resonate with this. Like we like to hear from our viewers. Now, I think if we are going to be pretty honest with ourselves, the truth is, if you look at most of the jobs that people have around the world, it's not exactly in dream job category. So then what typically is? So in our courses, when we use astrological profiling, one of the cool things that we get students to do is to profile themselves. So just for convenience sakes, we sort of give English names to some of these profiles, and I'm going to use one of these as an example. So one common profile among our students is called the humanitarian. So as with that given name, you might realize that a lot of these people want to make a difference to society. They might want to join organizations like the United Nations, the Red Cross Society, or even if it's not so international, maybe they just want to be part of a local community, grow some vegetables, feed some old people. At least it fits into their idea of, hey, this is how I want to make a contribution to my community, to the people that I care about. Now, another category that I like to talk about in my classes is this category called the transformer. Now, if you have this profile in your chart, quite often the transformer wants to go to things that are not pretty in the world. So it's things that are kind of screwed up. Maybe there are business processes that just don't work anymore. There are companies that are in trouble. Perhaps you're dealing with the dark side of society, like even people who have dealt with things like abuse or drugs or crime. And it could even be people who work with law and order, which kind of also means that you have to deal with criminals or people who don't do things that you necessarily agree with. Now, at this point, you might think, okay, why do some people want to deal with the dark stuff? It's because the transformer wants to bring the light into the icky parts of our lives. Now, there's a very similar profile called the transactor, which has some similarities to the transformer. Now, the transactor is a kind of person who wants to take things that are low value and turn them into high value. I don't know about you, but you've seen people do that. Like they buy properties or cars or like old things that are kind of broken or maybe they're kind of old or vintage type looking. And some people just have that magic skill to be able to bring value back into it. So you've seen renovators take like old apartments, do it up, and before you know it, it looks like somebody's designer hotel, right? So there is a kind of joy that shows up in specific careers that you definitely don't see in the so-called jobs that people hate. So then we get on to the next bit, which is then how do we actually tell the characteristics of jobs that people love and resonate with? So I'm going to offer you some of the characteristics of jobs that will light your fire, okay? So you might want to sort of take this down, okay? So the first characteristic is that you have to resonate with the purpose and the objective of the organization that you work for. The second is that you have to feel like you are making a positive contribution to the people that you care about. And the third criteria is that if you have certain skills and abilities, you want to make sure that you've spent it, you've used them all. If you're very good with photography, you want to make sure like people are enjoying your photographs or it's doing something good for people. Or if you're a good writer, you want to make sure that what you're writing is conveying messages that you care about. Now, the funny thing is we found across the years that among students and clients who have gone on to make positive changes in their careers, now you'd be surprised that if people were to find jobs that they really care about, let's just say if you cared about germs or health of people possibly in third world countries, and if you felt that you were making a positive contribution, like if you were to go to a third world country and somehow as a scientist or as a medical professional that your work was making people have clean water to drink or little children were not getting diseases that they would have gotten otherwise. And thirdly, if you had a strength or a skill that somehow you were working with people who really appreciated it and that you could really use it. And you'll be surprised how many people were willing to even do things like move to another country. They don't mind traveling long distances. Sometimes they don't even mind taking a pay cut or even enduring some kind of a difficult situation in their work. Now at this point, I know many people will be thinking, hey May, you've just really painted a wonderful, beautiful picture. So honestly, there are two main reasons why getting a profile and then looking for a job after that doesn't quite work. Because first of all, it's kind of hard to be an employee and then you just sort of show up at a company and say, well, here's my profile, here's my dream job. Can you actually give me the exact job description that I'm looking for? And you know what's the best part? You still have to pay me for it. Right? So I think most people understand that that doesn't quite sound like a very fair agreement, which is why a lot of students, my clients, they go like, okay, I have to be reasonable and I don't think I can go and demand that in a company, okay? So the second reason why possibly taking your profile and going to a company to apply for a position isn't going to work is because some of you know that an air era is coming. Now, even if you're not familiar with what I shared before about the air era, you do know that automation and digitalization is the next big frontier around the world. So if automation is going to show up, we're going to have a bit of a problem here because possibly robots are going to replace you. In fact, companies worldwide are saying that they are planning to reduce their headcount. So the thing is, even if you did get your dream job, it's possible that it's not going to be happily ever after. Now, so far, I'm not giving like the best news, isn't it? So this is why one of the things I like to suggest to people is that if you're going to do a career profile, at the end of it, whether you're the humanitarian or the transformer, you could design the kind of job that would really tick all the boxes. You would be happy to do it. You might not be so concerned about whether it was going to be like this massive salary or not. But it sometimes does mean that if you're going to design something, you might want to sort of explore ways in which you can have some form of self-employment. Now, at this point, I know some people are going to sort of freak out a bit. And in fact, I would just want to sort of share a quick story about one of my students. Okay, so her name is Emily, and Emily is a very talented designer. So she shared in class that when she discovered her profile, so she discovered that not only did she like to produce media creatives, but there was also a bit of a humanitarian side to her. She liked to make sure that people out there in need were getting their help, and even herself as a designer, that she would be able to contribute to that. Now, interestingly, what she said was in the past, she had worked for CSR type projects, but the problem was they wanted her to lead projects. And she's not really a leader kind of person. She'd prefer that people tell her what to do and then she'd be happy to support. Now, in her second job, she was able to care for a community of people, and the problem was they didn't need her to produce media creatives. So something that Emily shared in class was like, somehow, I'm just not getting that perfect formula. But you see, that's the reality of it, isn't it? If you apply to a company, you will need to fit their requirements and not the other way around. She was actually approached by another student in the class who needed her help because they wanted to do media creatives to support a community. And they were basically saying that that's exactly what we need. We need someone like you. And what this meant was this gave Emily an opportunity to kind of operate a little bit as a freelancer, because now she gets to speak with a direct person, somebody who is a singing teacher who wants to make a difference to a community. And then you do this on your terms. So you find that you get to decide, number one, if you resonate with the message that is being shared. And number two, you actually get to make a positive contribution to a community. And third of all, that her skills in creating media content is going to be used in a positive manner. Now, before I bring this video to an end, I just want to say that concerns about career, purpose, and life objectives isn't just a right now thing. It's been an issue since the beginning of time. And just think about how many people genuinely didn't choose the careers that they ended up with. And this is why, if you look around you, there is a huge amount of people who aren't quite in the right jobs. And I like to think that this is not just solving the problem of miserable people in miserable jobs, but rather, if you think about it, so many people have got skills and they have a big heart, the ability to make a major change to the world that just isn't being utilized right now. So what I like to suggest is there are many, many ways in which people can get to know themselves and to profile themselves and to be a bit more honest with what it is that you really want out of your career. And I think for some people, it feels a bit scary to sort of say, okay, there's this really weird thing that I want to do, and maybe there isn't a job out there that's for me. But I think it's also a revelation to yourself that perhaps what you wanted to do might have nothing to do with what you studied in school. It might not even be something that your parents might really approve of. I know about that, I'm an astrologer, remember? So the thing is, if you're going to be exploring something like that, and I don't think there's a better time than right now, because digitalization is here, automation is here, and you find that the great resignation is also among us. And I think it's a time when a lot of people can sort of really resonate with this idea of let's do something meaningful. Because there are lots of problems out there that people genuinely want to solve. And if you've got skills, if you want to sort of get together with like-minded people, put some solutions together that maybe your company isn't quite doing right now. And you'll be very surprised what 3 or 4 very commissioned, very passionate people can bring about. So if that's you, you might want to check out the links in my description below. We're going to have a bit more information there about how you can participate in some of our astrology programs, get to know yourself, and then start making plans for yourself from here onwards. I'll see you guys in the next video.